Hi, how's it going? I hope you're well and doing okay. It's really me, Victor Counted. I'm really excited to be here to kind of talk to you about kind of do a follow-up video from my last video just to comment on Luigi Mangione, who was just recently has been caught, who is a suspect for the shooting of Brian Thompson, the CEO of the UnitedHealthcare, who was shot and killed in a targeted attack. Now, the person accused of the shooting is a 26-year-old man named Luigi Mangione. Now, who is, I think, a resident of Maryland. But now, I think Louis gets not really, Mr. Mangione wasn't really it's not your typical criminal suspect. He was highly educated. He's a graduate with degrees in computer science from the University of Pennsylvania. But when police arrested him, they found a ghost gun. They found multiple fake IDs and even handwritten manifesto criticizing healthcare corporations and the healthcare industry in itself. Now, of course, there's still some investigation ongoing that is going on, but it seems like he is the guy that was actually shot Brian Thompson. But the question for me is, how does someone with such promising future end up allegedly kind of committing such an extreme act of violence? In this video, we are going to kind of try to dig into Luigi Mangione's psychological profile. We will I'm not trying to analyze him or diagnose him or whatever, but I'm just trying to sort of do a case analysis just to get a sense of what might be happening beneath the media. But also, we would also try to explore what might have been going on in his mind, the role, and perhaps maybe the role that his health struggles, maybe his surgery may have played in the whole scenario, and what his story kind of reveals about the human nature, especially the way that we deal with betrayal, frustration, and the need for justice. Now, but who is Luigi Mangione? I think let's start by understanding who he is, or rather who he was. Luigi, he was a high school achiever. He was a valedictorian, for example. In his high school, he was a double degree holder from an Ivy League university, University of Pennsylvania. He came from a successful family, and on the surface, he seemed to be on a path to a bright future. But his online activity kind of paints a different picture. For example, he shared a lot of frustration with the healthcare system. He shared a lot of frustration and anger with capitalism and even the modern society. He even praised the radical manifestos that actually criticized industrial progress and societal systems and societies in general. And I think that this suggests that he was really struggling and dealing with some pretty deep grievances. We're not sure why this is the case, but I will unpack this later on. There seemed to be a personal health struggles that he had and a feeling of betrayal, because as we kind of look more deeper into his story, I think here's the key detail. He kind of seemed to have serious health issues on his, for example, on his Twitter profile. He had an X-ray image that kind of looked like he had spinal surgery, and some reports say that he was supposed to have surgery but never went through with it. Imagine this, really. Put yourself in his shoe for a second. You are in a pain, you need medical help, and you rely on the healthcare system that you believe should take care of you, but instead maybe you face delays, and maybe you face bureaucracy, and maybe you feel like no one is listening, and perhaps you're somehow being torn down, and I think that sense of being let down or even being abandoned by a system that you've been paying your money every month, or that you think that would provide healthcare when the need arises, that a system that you trusted, when they betray you like that, it can be devastating. I'm not saying that was the case, but it seems like there is something pending, that he might have been involved in some kind of, he might have needed some kind of medical attention. I was not able to assess his health care. Now, I think in psychology we call this betrayal trauma. It really happens when someone or something that you trust lets you down in a profound way. And betrayal, of course, by the healthcare system, especially when you're vulnerable and in pain, can lead to feelings of anger and resentment. Now, I think Luigi's case I would say it kind of seems to be fueled by grievance and moral outrage, because moral outrage, it's sort of that intense feeling of anger and disgust that we feel when we see something unjust happening. If Luigi Mangione believed that healthcare corporations were causing him harm or denying him care or prioritizing profit over people, that outrage could have consumed him, as you would imagine. And when people like and I think when people feel like they are suffering because of a system failure or the failures of a system, it's easy to see someone like a CEO as the face of that as the face of that system. And so for Luigi himself, Brian Thompson may have become a symbol of everything that he felt was wrong with the healthcare system. And in my previous video, I talked about scapegoating effect as one important lens through which to see this. And perhaps this might be the reason why the CEO was targeted. But I think, as I asked the question, why target the CEO directly? I think also this is where scapegoating also comes in, because it happens when someone channels their frustration towards a specific person, a specific individual who also represents a bigger or more complicated problem. It's easy, of course, to blame, let's say, an individual than to fight an entire system. CEOs are public figures that are visible faces of corporations, and to someone like Luigi Mangione, taking action against a CEO might felt like a direct way to address his grievances, even if it didn't solve the problem and the underlying issues. But I think there's another important factor to consider here: isolation and online radicalization. Because if Luigi was dealing with chronic pain or felt abandoned by the healthcare system, I think that he might have pulled away from friends and family, because isolation can make our negative thoughts to become louder. And if he was spending a lot of time online, he may have been engaging with content that sort of reinforced his anger. Now, in my previous video about incel psychology, I talked about online echo chambers, which can be very dangerous. They sort of amplify grievances and they can make extreme ideas seem kind of reasonable. And if Luigi was reading radical manifestos, as we see him post on his Twitter feed, and interacting with like-minded people online, of course you can find different kinds of people online. I think that this could have deepened his sense of outrage and justified his desire for retribution. So, I think, what does this tell us? What does Luigi Mangione's story tell us about being human? One, I think we crave fairness and trust. We all have a deep need for fairness. And so when systems that we trust let us down, the betrayal itself kind of cuts deep. This can be a cause of betrayal trauma for most people. The second thing that we learn from the story is that unresolved pain can also turn into rage. Whether it's physical, emotional pain that are not addressed, they can often fester. And when people feel like they can't get help, that pain can often turn into anger. But also, I think isolation is very dangerous, because human connection helps us to stay afloat. It helps us to stay grounded. It helps us to find accountability partners. And when people feel isolated, they are more likely to fall into harmful thought patterns and radicalize ideas and behaviors like we've seen with Luigi Mangione. But the other thing also is the fact that I think that justice can get twisted. The desire for justice is natural, but when it's pursued without empathy and perspective, it can lead to tragic outcomes, as we've seen with this story. The tragedy, I think, of this case really reminds us that we need to build systems that are fair, systems that are transparent, and systems that are compassionate. On one hand, Luigi Mangione have lost sight of perspective. He was looking at trying to pursue justice without perspective, and as a result of that, shot a man that was a husband, that was a father, and at the same time now he's been caught. He's facing it probably either life without parole, or going to spend the rest of his life in prison, which is really sad. On the other hand, also, I think there's a mental health angle to this. I don't know what the next couple of months will look like for him, but I think there might be also a case for mental health for Luigi Mangione, because clearly he was a young man that was deeply isolated and also was having a lot of mental health challenge, given the betrayal trauma that he is going through. But I think as a society, we need to address grievances. It's very important that we do that, because when people feel heard, when people feel supported, when people feel cared for, they are less likely to fall into despair. They're less likely to engage in extreme actions. And we should provide mental health support and create communities where people feel connected and valued. Now, from the health insurance perspective or angle, I think there are things that they could do to provide additional support for clients or customers that they've turned down. Perhaps there might be ways to provide counseling service that they can pay for to help those clients to kind of manage maybe the sense of betrayal that they might feel at the moment, at the point of their rejection, or to manage the stress that might come around as a result of the rejections that they might have received from the company. And so I think that Luigi Mangione story, it's really heartbreaking for him, for Brian Thompson, and for everyone affected by this tragedy. It's sort of a wake-up call as well, I think, to look at how we can handle systemic frustrations, how we can handle mental health issues, and the very human need for justice and dignity. Now, if this video gave you new insights on this case, I hope that you can at least like and drop a comment and try to subscribe on our platform. It's good to kind of see people engaging with our videos. And let's continue kind of this conversation. And even I want to end with this question: how do we build a society or world where trust, empathy, and fairness can help us all flourish? I'll see you in the next one. It is Victor Counted. See you soon. Bye.